Okay. Looks like we're live. Let's double check here. Just to be sure. All right, there we go. Okay. Yeah, we are live. Fantastic. Um Alrighty. So, where are we? Okay, we're here. All right. Thanks for bearing with. Um yeah, now we can get after it. Okay. Yeah. All right. What's up, guys? Let's do a clean start take here so I can cut to it when when I'm done with the VOD. Um okay. All right, how's it going, guys? My name is Gabriel Quinn, and today we're going to be talking about design, specifically how to refine your designs once you kind of have your bearings on where you're at with your idea, how to kind of take it to the next step, and what kind of things you'd want to know and things to consider. So that's what we're going to be going through today. So I have a piece here, a little demo piece that we're going to be talking about a little bit. But before that, I wanted to mention, before I forget, to be honest, that there's a few days left. Here, I'll pull this up here, a few days left to get a spot in my upcoming dragon design workshop, or it's a boot camp actually. So it's a 9-day dragon design boot camp. It's only like 27 bucks a day. A lot of really, really great lectures. We can go through the structure very briefly here, where we're going to be going through anatomy, structure, shape design, design appeal. We're going to be talking about narrative, how to use style, composition, and some notes on designing with light. Iterating on your designs, experimenting, how to work backwards effectively. This one's a huge one, how to work backwards effectively. Oh my gosh. We can talk a little bit about that today as well, actually. Going through a Q&A and doing a review session, looking at the work that you guys are doing. Also, understanding rendering. This one's huge. Understanding rendering. Man, I wish I had this when I was learning the material we're going to go through. Designing with material in mind. This is also hugely important. We're going to talk about this a little bit today. How to make things look finished. This is a hugely important element to design when you're wanting to push your work. And then we're going to be doing like a wrap-up session on some of the material. And then we're doing all-day design jams, kind of like hosted by me. I'm going to kind of be mediating and helping you guys, giving live feedback, giving live tips. And we're all going to be doing some concept art together on like a shared world-building project, which is like my favorite thing to do. So the Saturday, Sunday stuff for the last 2 days are going to be super, super fun. The lectures are 2.5 hours, and you'll be able to review them in perpetuity. So you guys can go back and rewatch in a year, 2 years, 10 years, even, you can rewatch them immediately if you want to. So even if you can't make the live lectures, you'll be able to follow along with the assignments and whatnot. And there's a bunch of additional admin stuff, and we have some fun testimonials if you guys want to read. But yeah, so rar dragon. If you guys have, if you guys want to engage with this really awesome design boot camp, I would highly recommend it. I would definitely recommend it to people who don't know why their work doesn't look the way they want it to. If there's something in between you and the look that you want to achieve, this is hugely helpful. And what I love about dragons in particular is that they're a perfect kind of fundamentals test. So if you have really strong fundamentals, you can design an incredible dragon. But if you don't have strong fundamentals, you'll hit a bunch of walls in the process. So that's why I think dragons are a great, I guess, like test for your fundamentals, which is why I think this boot camp is such an effective structure for learning art. Anyway, enough of that stuff. We can get into what we're going to talk about today. So let's get back over to this cool dragon guy, which, man, I'm having so much fun with this design. It's been a long time since I've gone about a design like this, but it's been really fun so far. Let me see here. I want to make sure I'm checking the chat so I can see everything. Yeah, let's see. I should have an ability to see my the live chat here, I think. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, all right. This should be good. This should be working. Man, so many technical things, eh? Is it still working? Yeah, it's still working. Okay, nice. Yeah, and if you guys have any questions in the chat, I always answer every question I possibly can, which is kind of everything, to be honest. So if you guys have a question about art or design, I'll be happy to answer in the chat as well. Thanks for you guys who have already liked the stream. I appreciate it. You guys rule. Yeah, let's get after it. So there's a few things I'm doing today. One is kind of reviewing this design, so I'll take you through the process of how I got here. And then the next thing we're going to be doing is looking at a design I'm working on, which is this one, and figuring out ways we can push it and refine it and get it to that next level. I love the gesture, so I think I really want to keep pushing this piece. But let's stick around for this one for now. So this piece, honestly, I think like, if I were to critique it just on its face, I think the gesture is a little bit stiff for me personally. And also I think that some of the values are a little confusing. So I'm doing a bit of a lighting pass that I'm working on now, I guess. But overall, it's a very busy piece, you know? But let's talk about how we got here to begin with. So it all started very early on in the process. We can go through and take a look at all the ways in which we work to get to where we were here. And it's really fun to see the process. So yeah, let's start from the beginning with the sketch. So I always start things off with a sketch, right? You guys have seen me stream a lot. You kind of know how I sketch, you know how I work. So this was the kind of beginning for this piece, or I guess it was a black line, to be honest. So I did this sketch initially, just kind of pushing some cool gesture, and I was thinking of this dragonkin warrior guy. I used to play a lot of that game, like Adventure Quest and Dragon Fable, and so like when I was younger, like the kind of dragonkin fantasy race was so cool to me. I thought it was so sick. So I loved to draw that when I was younger. I would draw a lot of fantasy dragonkin characters, but I haven't done it in a long time, to be honest. It's been a long time since I've kind of designed a fantasy character like this, so it was cool to just kind of let loose. Also, Penwolf's in the chat. What up, Penwolf? So whenever I start doing line art, I'll typically kind of throw some color on the lines, and I'll turn the opacity down. So I turned the opacity way down, and then I worked on top to get this line art here for this character. So yeah, again, I like how it turned out. I thought it turned out kind of in a cool way. So initially it was all just kind of like black, and then I added some color to it because eventually we added some color underneath. So when I do flats for a character, with my process, don't ask me why I do this, but for my process, I usually do something like this. I know it's pretty intense when I do it live. It's a little bit less intense, but right here it looks pretty intense when I just turn it on and off and on. But I'll do this for the piece, and this allows me to create color relationships in a really loose way, where I'm not worried about like coloring in the lines. I'm more trying to find color relationships that I like. After that, what I'll do is I will trim the edges down, and I'll kind of take stock of what I have. So this is kind of where I was at. I took stock of what I have with these base colors, and then I went in and did a little of the coloring in the lines thing after, once I had a base that I liked, essentially. So one thing I did here, value-wise, is I darkened areas of the face and hands to kind of draw your attention to the piece. So I actually think that probably this is, I think, the strongest iteration of the design so far, because I'm still figuring out the render, which is why we're doing some of it live today. But I think that the values are really clear, so we have some good value relationships where the darkest areas are around the eyes and the hands, drawing your focus. The armor is kind of well separated, and then we have some very nice grouped values with the cape and the wings and the cloth and all that stuff. So after this, I decided I wanted to do a shadow pass. So the shadow pass that I did was I wanted to try this kind of backlit look where I essentially kind of I pushed in from the back angle mostly, and I left the front kind of dim. And after that, what I did was I did hard edges basically for all of this. So you could kind of think of this as almost like a cell shading approach here. What I did after that was I took it and I modified it. Here, we'll go back and forth here. And I softened a lot of those shadows. So here, oh, this is 70. Here, we'll do this at 70. so that we have equal footing. Yeah. So I took the base lighting that I had, and I came in and I made some changes. You can see the changes that I made were essentially I added some atmospheric light, some reflected light, some bounce light onto other areas of the piece. And I added some nice kind of reflected material indications on the scale here, where I left some of that light coming across the arm on the other side too. Which was, I think a move in the right direction, kind of creating this sort of really kind of ethereal lighting situation, going from that hard edge where everything's very cell shaded, and then going to that next step where it's becoming a little more painterly. So after doing something like this, I then came in with a very, very slight lighting layer, like really, really subtle lighting layer. And you can see I just lifted some of the values on the cloth, added some more kind of saturation to some areas, and particularly under the wings, I wanted to get that nice, what's the look? The subsurface scattering in there. So we have the biggest jump right after, basically, and in the next step here, where actually this changes anyway. Yeah, there we go. So this is the biggest jump, which is the kind of overpainting phase. So when I'm working on something, I'll go into all of this stuff where I'll follow all of those different steps and get to like this point where I've got my kind of base lighting, things are looking good, and then I'll start working on top and just like rendering. So at this stage, things can get a little crazy sometimes. You can see I added a lot of detail here, which, honestly, I'm somewhat on the fence about changing some of the other stuff. And that's why I wanted to do this live, to kind of show you guys, like, you can leave a piece and then come back a little bit later and change some stuff. So yeah, what was I doing here? Oh yeah, I was experimenting there. So I had this piece here where now when we look at the values, it's a little less obvious. It's a little less grouped. It's a bit more high contrast and intense. But I do like it anyway. I think it looks really cool. So yeah, from this point, I continued to push and I started doing a lot of indications of material. So I think the area that I'm thinking is the most successful right now is this kind of arm scale area. So you can see how we had a pretty rough indication of the lighting setup. I gave myself the kind of runway here to go off of, where I have this nice specular highlight running across, telling you that like this is reflecting light in a very strong and bold way, and there are nice dark shadows around and whatnot, which are pretty cool. And then that rim light on either end. And what I did was I slowly added in. Well, first I can tell you what I can tell you the process. I can't show you, unfortunately. I don't have the painting recording. But what I did was I added in those dark shadows, right? You can see those dark shadows come in. And that really tells you that it's gold, or those dark shadows. And then I added some fun blue highlights here, just kind of reflecting some of the local colors around, not being too precious, just like experimenting, adding in some cool color temperature stuff. And then I went in and added these really bright white highlights in certain areas that are just catching some light. And all of those together kind of equal this really nice finish where it really looks golden. So I think this is sort of where a lot of artists get stuck. They get stuck kind of in this process where they've put down the multiply layer and they've sort of added in some lighting, but from this point, they really don't know how to move forward and just kind of paint on top and change things and evolve things. So that's one thing that I'm really passionate about teaching, specifically in this Dragon Design Bootcamp that's starting in a couple days. But yeah, you can see the kind of process here. So this is still an unfinished piece. I'm still working this out, finishing it, coloring it. One thing that I'm experimenting with right now is the values of the wings and some of the rendering on the other wings. So I lifted the values of the armor, and this created a nice kind of separation between the skin value of the dragon and the lighter value of the armor. Again, still on the fence of whether or not I'm going to keep it that way. I think both look interesting. But then we did another refinement pass on top. So this is, I think, the more experimental pass I'm doing right now, where I'm figuring out these kind of final touches of what I want to include. So kind of they look a little bit extreme because they're kind of based on the lifted color here, so they look a little intense in a couple areas, but we can reduce those down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I think I'm going to just duplicate this, this folder. So we have the original version we were working on. which will leave it in the state that it was in. And then we have a slightly newer version that we're going to be working on top of to talk through some of these ideas. After that, I was actually experimenting with some high drama lighting, going back in and really pushing some of the lighting here. And this is an interesting approach to kind of finishing a design when you're kind of wanting to cascade and create some cool stuff. I think if I was going to go back and redo it again, I would probably map the more dramatic lighting on first and then kind of go through and do some of the overpainting stuff. So it's kind of like, I mean, backtracking is sort of maybe not ideal, but this is more of a like character illustration or a like an asset illustration where you're showing the design really clearly in a very neutral lighting scenario. You're showing all the materials. You're not really going for a lot of drama here. But yeah, let's go through and work on top of this guy. So looking back, I kind of like the original eye, to be honest. I think it's kind of cool. Also, I'd love to hear how you guys are doing. I mean, you know, I'm trying to go live more these days. I helped my my girlfriend move out of her apartment recently. Man, what a trip that was. So intense. My goodness, it was so intense. But it was really, I think, like good for me. Like it was a very intense physical process, so I think it, you know, is helping me stay in shape, I guess. But my goodness, it was hard. Oh my gosh. And so much time. I feel like I didn't have time to there's so much I lost time for that I wanted to do. But these things come up in life, you know. You got to show up for the people you care about and really go for it. So one thing I want to try is I want to try reducing the lighting down on the wings a little bit because I like the idea of the subsurface scattering, but I feel like for what we're doing here, it might be a little bit extreme, especially because that kind of implies a strong backlight, and we're not really showing a strong backlight in the rest of the image. So it's kind of almost giving a false sense of the lighting scenario by going too heavy with the subsurface scattering on the wings. It's a great example of wanting to do a cool effect, but maybe it's not actually appropriate for the piece that you're working on. Again, I think if I were to go back and relight it and try it again, which we can actually do today, we can go in and try that lighting scenario out. Yeah, that would be a cool experiment actually. But yeah, sometimes the thing that you want to do that you think is really cool isn't actually going to work for the piece that you're working on. It's always like essential to stay very humble and yeah, definitely try your best with this stuff. Yeah, honestly, I kind of like the old eyes compared to the new ones, so we're going to kind of push it back a little bit. I think it looks so good. We got to figure out where this green is. Yeah. Northern Lemon says, I had to help like 3 different relatives move in one year a while back. I hear you. Yeah, man. Dude, 3 relatives, that's a lot. Yeah, it's hard. Moving is really hard. It definitely, you know, I've moved a lot in my life because I did so much time in like boarding school and stuff and moving around a lot when I was younger. So I feel like I went to boarding school or through the experience of going to boarding school, like I really learned how to like reduce my life down to just like a few suitcases and keep it that way for like a decade. So it's interesting, you know, helping someone else move who hasn't had that same experience. And maybe it's you end up being really useful because you can kind of sort of be very pragmatic about stuff like, you don't really need that. You don't really need this, you know? You won't be sad if this goes or rah, 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 rah. You can kind of just be a support while someone does something that is oftentimes very emotional thing. Okay, so today we've been rendering mostly with hard round. I think hard round is great for demo pieces because everyone has access to these brushes. Oh, thanks for the hearts. Hey, what's up, Mimikyu? How's it going? Or Mimik? Anne said, I felt that you were live and came to YouTube, and you are. Haha! Wow. A premonition, I do say, I do say. Indeed. Nice. Figure drawing says you're low key saying that she has a lot of stuff. No shade. It's so funny. No, I live in New York, so anyone who lives in New York, like, you usually have like way less stuff than the average person because usually you're living in kind of a smallish apartment. And all things said and done, she actually didn't have a lot of stuff at all. She had, she was in a really small apartment, and so she didn't have a lot of stuff at all. uh but I think it's like, did she manage to fit more than I think either of us realized in the in um the her apartment. It was like just unreal, towards the end there. Yeah, again, it was just a, a very unique experience, I'll say. Helping her move and everything, it was very unique. Very powerful experience. Oh my gosh, that stuff, man. That'll really show you who you are in an interesting way, you know? Yeah, I'm liking this look. Even though we miss out on the cool kind of lighting effect, like, I think it makes more sense that these values are a bit better grouped, I think. For stuff like this, you can also get away with a lot. Like, you can kind of really push these values closer, because even though we're going over it with this green tone, you still definitely know that it's like the kind of army, like the kind of fingery thing of the wing. Like, your brain knows, so you don't have to be too insane about it, I guess. Cool, cool. Floppa says this looks insane. Thanks, dude. Appreciate it. Mimique says, going all right. Just left my desk for the day. Oh, that's a good feeling. Man, yeah. I kind of miss the rhythm of the 9 to 5. I mean, I never did like a 9 to 5. I like did construction and like working in fine dining and stuff. So like, it was always insane hours, like weird hours. But I miss the rhythm of just like daily consistent work. Freelancing, it's intense. I'm on my most recent Lorcana card, which I can't talk about what it is or anything like that, but um it's really fun. And I kind of wish I was just doing it full time. Like, I kind of wish I was just illustrating full time so I could do that kind of clock on, clock off kind of thing. Yeah, we're going to bring the values darker on the face to bring more attention, separate it from the rest, pull your eye into that area. Go a little bit lighter underneath here. Figure drawing says micro apartments can be wild. Some people make great use of them and make it work well. Oh yeah, she made it work so well. It was really great space. Penwolf says your rendering looks amazing. By chance, what are your thought process for designing the wings? The shape looks awesome, but doesn't feel connected to his back, sort of hovering. Yeah, that's something that I'm like thinking about. This kind of asset you can always move when you're working on stuff. When I did the original sketch, I can show you. I did the original sketch. See if we can find it. Yeah, here we go. This and this. You know, it was even it was kind of on that upper section, which is something that I find myself doing with a lot of dragon designs. Like I find myself choking the wings up a little bit, like pretty high. I think I even did it on the last one I did. Let's see if I can find it here. Was it this one? I believe it was on last stream. Let's see if we can pull it up here. Yeah, on this guy. So for this one, I did a very similar thing actually. I know it's like kind of a jump scare. This is a very creepy design. Here, let's go in a little bit. Yeah, there we go. It was a little too high contrast there. So yeah, for this one, when I was working on this dragon, I did a similar thing where the wing was positioned quite like high on the body. Something I'm experimenting with, you know, figuring out. But one thing that's nice about like structuring or layering your design in a way that's like more of a graphic thing, like once I'm done with the kind of render pass and everything, yeah, once I'm done with the look I want, I can kind of push it, rearrange it, like I can show you. This is also another reason why it can be really good to work at a relatively high resolution. Like I typically always work 4K if I can, just because it makes for certain changes later on a lot easier. And for all the reasons I don't like Photoshop, one thing I really like is their transform tool. I think their transform tool is really good. Like it's pretty darn lossless, all things considered. Versus whenever I move things around in Procreate, oh, just gets destroyed. The quality's just immediately gone. It's like really unfortunate. So in Procreate, this process is a lot less forgiving, but I found in Photoshop it can be pretty good, where we can just take this. And we can even increase the size and reposition it if we wanted to be more down. Reconnect it. So this could be a fun thing we do at the end where we reposition some elements and kind of push and pull things around. But for now, we're just working on the materials mostly. Cool. Figure drawing says so much expression in that creature's face. Yeah, expression is the most fun part in my opinion. Anne says, is there a creature slash animal you like to draw the most? Honestly, like, this might be weird, but I just like drawing dragons. It's just a lot of fun for me. It's a motif I just always find myself coming back to. So yeah, we'll work on this guy for a bit longer, and then we can transition to the other piece I'm working on, because I'm actually curious to how I'm gonna like adapt it. Yeah, what about you guys? Do you guys have a favorite creature or animal you like to draw, paint, design, all that good stuff? Northern Lemon says, you always remind me of Nicholas Cole. Do you like drawing old men too? Oh, dude. Anyone with taste likes drawing old men. Yeah, dude, I consider Nicholas Cole like definitely like a creative kindred spirit, you know? I didn't get to meet him last Lightbox because I was trapped at my table the whole time. I literally didn't leave once. But this year I'm really going to try and see him if I can. Ganzito says, most certainly ducks and sharks. Oh, heck yeah. Nice. Ryan says, yo, this is looking very baller. Dude, thank you, Ryan. Appreciate you. Appreciate that. Yeah, I'm trying to make it look really baller. It's my goal. Yeah, going for a much higher degree of polish than I typically do on pieces like this. Yeah, I'm working on this guy in preparation for the dragon design boot camp I'm doing in a couple days, which there's still seats available if anybody wants to sign up. The link is in the description. I'll talk about it a bit. I'll talk about it again in a little bit. I talked about it very briefly at the start of the stream. But if you guys want to check it out or ask me any questions while I'm live about it, or ask questions about it while I'm live, feel free. But yeah, this piece is a demo piece for that. Going in like many different explorative directions, pushing shapes, structure, creature anatomy, all that fun stuff. Oh yeah, there was a version of this where I was trying some really nice dark drop shadows. It's something I actually might add back in. I think it's such a cool look. I think I would have to be pretty meticulous with how I go about it though, but it's something that I'm like thinking about going back into this kind of like dark shadow vibe. Adds a lot of cool graphic elements. I almost want the front kind of beak of the dragon to look like it's the same material as the horns, you know, like that same kind of scale material, have that consistency. I love that look and design where you have those nice reoccurring motifs. Bro, so shiny, dude. It's true. It's true. Mimique says, I don't I don't draw animals much, but insects were fun. Usually study them. Very nice. And says, I don't draw right now, but on my clay sculptures, I like to sculpt and draw snakes. Oh yeah, such fun. Such fun subjects snakes are. They're so cool. Soul Mooney says, love old men. Heck yeah, we love old men. My grandfather's an old man. Love that guy. Mackenzie says, bro, so shiny. It's true. Penwolf says, fascinating. You must have some great layer management. I always dread realizing I need to reposition something after I've spent so much time reading it. Or drawing it, I'm assuming you said. Yeah. Oh, rendering it. Yeah. Mackenzie says, is this a D&D character? So right now, I don't have a playgroup to play D&D with, so I'm not really playing D&D these days. So I don't have the opportunity to make like D&D characters or play D&D. But I like that you thought it was a D&D character. There's that one guy who I love, that one guy on YouTube who does like D&D character videos like every week it seems. He's like really on it. I can't remember his name. If someone remembers his name, that'd be amazing. Something with an L, I feel like. Okay, a little too dark there. That looks pretty good. ABD illustrates? I don't think so. I don't think so. Let me see if I can find him real quick. Oh yeah, his name is Earns. This guy. Here, I'll put his channel in the chat. He seems really cool. He's got great information in his videos, so you should definitely check it out. This guy, he's really cool. Fizzy Fluff, welcome, says, what's your favorite D&D character you've made in the past? So, believe it or not, I've actually only been able to play D&D one time. Like for real. I used to play all the time when I was a kid, but it was like unstructured D&D, you know, where it's like there aren't really any real rules. Which was fun. It was really fun actually when I was younger. But in recent memory, when I was in art school, this must have been, God, how many years ago? Like 5, I think. I did a D&D campaign with a game design student who wanted to get better at game design. So they were running a D&D campaign to kind of learn better game design. And I made this wood elf bard druid character. And I had the ability to summon wooden ducks. I would like roll a d4 and I would make that many ducks. And I think that was like a spell slot. I'm pretty sure that's what that's called or something. And so during an intense boss fight, I made a bunch of wooden ducks. I made 3. And there was someone else in the party who had like this like flame monkey character. And the flame monkey character sent their they did an AoE attack that ignited the ducks on fire, and then I sent the ducks into the eye of the beholder that we were fighting, and it did enough damage to kill the beholder. It was like flame damage and all that stuff. It was cool. So that was like fun. So I like that character. Also, it was definitely one of those like I think early playthrough things where we rolled stats. So we rolled all of our stats, which was fun. I rolled a nat 20 for attractiveness for the character. So every single person we came across, I was like, roll for seduction, roll for seduction. Every single time I was like, roll for seduction. So that was funny. It worked almost all the time. It was hilarious. So I seduced everybody in that playthrough, which was fun. We only did a couple sessions though. It was funny. We had all the kind of generic stuff, you know, characters playing all these different characters. And then some person was like the classic, I'm a dark sorcerer, dragonkin warlock who's has a troubled past, and it was like the kind of edgelord, you know, starter kit thing vibe, which was really funny. So that was cool. Getting to see that in the flesh was kind of fun too. But yeah, no, I haven't really been able to play D&D a lot recently. I'd love to. I just honestly can't consistently find the time. I've been playing recently with some friends. I've been playing 4-player chess. I don't know if you guys have ever played 4-player chess, but it's really fun, actually. It's like a ton of fun. I've been having an absolute blast playing 4-player chess. My goodness, it's some good fun. I didn't realize it would be as fun as it was, but that's been a great source of enjoyment for me recently. It's been 4-player chess, so that's been cool. And then I've been playing a bunch of Hades 2. So I've done about like 80 runs now, and I haven't beaten the upgraded main bosses with the pact of whatever the new one is in the new game. I haven't beaten the new final, like the true final boss. You know, like when you do the thing on the fear meter thing. I haven't beaten the true forms of the final bosses yet, but I'm excited to. I've only got I've only fought them like a couple times in the true form. That's been so much fun, man. Hades is such a fun game. But I'm really looking forward to Supergiant's next title that's not Hades. Like I was actually like when they announced Hades 2, I was a little disappointed because I love their previous titles so much. So much fun. But yeah. Hey you, what's up? Mackenzie says, one of my friend's D&D campaigns, he made a shop for homebrew items and let us add items of our own to toll each other. That's awesome. Heck yeah. Oh, someone asked before, is the axe a bronze material? Um, or like a brassy bronze material. The axe, it's interesting. I'm still rendering the axe. The axe is not finished rendering, and that's one thing that I'm actually figuring out almost like while I'm going is what is this axe material? You know, what is it made out of? I think I might end up making it something almost a little bit opalescent and cool, but we'll see. Tulip says, haven't played Hades 2 since before the last update. Yeah, so the big update apparently happened. I had no idea. I just decided to buy Hades 2, and everyone's like, "Oh, wait, you did it because of the new update, right?" I was like, "What? What new update?" I didn't even know. But apparently there was a new update that changed everything. So I'm playing it new for the first time since this big update happened. It's been so much fun. Oh my gosh. All the new characters, they're so much fun. I do like some of the illustrations from the first game a bit more than for this game. I think like some of the gods kind of lost their riz a little bit in the new one. But it's okay. Gen Z kind of can do no wrong. Who, if you don't know, is the artist for Supergiant. Her name is literally Gen Z, like Gen and then ZEE. It's hilarious. Yeah, I'm thinking this axe might be this kind of opalescent vibe. I've been really jamming with the kind of like opalescent look of things recently. So I might stick with that for the axe here. I think it would look cool. Fizzy Fluff says it's so cool the axe kind of looks like a dragon wing. Yeah, I wanted that fun, like weird element where it's just like very like this is a fantasy weapon. Like there's no doubt this is a fantasy weapon, you know? I really wanted that to be the most clear element to this piece. Yeah, one thing I was considering is making the base of the axe like more golden. So like adding in some nice like really rich dark shadows in to give it that gold look. So it's definitely on my mind as an option. I still don't know 100% what that's gonna end up looking like. So we'll see. Yeah, we'll definitely see. It's fun with gold as well as adding in some reflections and stuff from like other sources, but just very subtly. Yeah, this piece definitely is going to take a few more sessions to bring home to kind of get the look that I want for it. But I wanted to work on it a little bit live so you guys can sort of get a live sense of how I think through this kind of stuff and everything. So we can actually apply some of these ideas to the piece that I really want to develop, actually. I want to develop this piece a lot more. So I started working on this in between chess sessions the other day, and it's this pretty like strange character where this dragon is kind of yelling. The original sketch for it, I like it. I like the original sketch so much. Let's see if I can find it. Is it here? Yeah, yeah. So the original sketch I like a lot. This was kind of the energy sketch I wanted, where I wanted some wild magic flying around and the wings to be, you know, there, and I wanted this really dynamic pose. So I went in and I added the lines. So we can see where I went with the lines. I ended up kind of pushing the wings a little bit more out, but I kept the position of the hands and the body pretty close. You can see though I pushed the torso back a bit more to get that more defined S curve. And then I did my usual where I kind of did the colors underneath and all that good stuff. And then I cut them out and made some adjustments, which was cool. And then I've been experimenting with the fun kind of effects layers of what the magic looks like. I was working on that for a little bit, and we'll see how this kind of continues to develop, still figuring out sort of the feel and the look I want for the magic. But yeah, we can work on this a little bit. One thing that I wanted to try for this one is kind of develop the lighting for this with a bit more intention. So he's got this kind of energy ball in his mouth, and it's sort of also in his hands too. So I wanted that kind of like relationship between like the mouth and the hands to be pretty clear and have these sort of like weird tendrils wrapping around and connecting them. So yeah, we can do some edits and stuff and kind of push these a bit more. I can reduce some of the opacity for some of these lines to kind of make them a little bit more ephemeral, a little less gigantic, you know? Yeah. So you want to have an idea typically when you're working on a piece of what you're looking for in terms of your outcome. You want kind of a clear idea of an outcome. You want an idea of purpose and all of that good stuff. So for both of these, we started with a really loose sketch. And then we wanted to kind of bring them into a more defined finish. So with the last one, we just wanted to make the materials really clear and show the colors really well and just kind of have it be a strong drawing. But with this one, I kind of want more of the gesture kind of built in here. I want the gesture to be more front and center. The first thing I'm noticing is that with that kind of back hand, I think for the sake of flow, that hand facing away might actually not be the best thing for this piece. But before I do any of that, what I'm actually going to do is a little bit of what I showed before. I'm going to reposition a couple elements that I want to maybe push a little bit more. So I think I want to push the wings, to be honest. I definitely want to push the wings. So I'm going to grab the lines. Yeah, here we go. I want to grab the lines and the base colors here. We're going to flatten these. And I'm going to work on this now a little bit more like it's a speed painting. So I'm going to cut the back wing there. This other wing, which I like the position of, but we may want to try a couple things, right? Okay, so we can turn the wings on and off now. So we can kind of figure out where they want to be. Let's also make sure we're addressing the questions here. Amber says, just dropping in before bed. This looks sick. Love the weapon rendering. Yo, thank you. PhysioFluff says, is this character a part of some world or just a one-off design? So the things I'm doing these days are mostly one-off designs. I have a lot of world building content. You can look at the backlog of my streams. This is stream, what are we on now? I think we're on 79, right? Let's see. Yeah, 79. Wow. Crazy. So there's 78 streams of me working on some of my world building projects. And you can kind of see when I'm working on my portfolio, when I'm working on other stuff, you can kind of check in on that stuff and see what I'm doing to get a sense of it. But yeah, pretty much these are one-off designs right now. But for me, one-off designs usually end up becoming world building projects. It's a habit I cannot drop, apparently, is making new world building projects, something I can't stop doing. Okay. So for this one, I want the lighting to be, or the magic to be kind of the main focus for these designs. So what I'm thinking is actually really pushing the elements of light and dark a lot with this piece. There's many ways to go about doing it. Sometimes a fun way is just to experiment with like what you have in terms of like overlays and certain effects you can apply and just kind of try things. But because our value range is so great for the character, none of these are really doing what we want them to do. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use just a blank effects layer, and I'm just going to do a classic multiply, just drop all the values of everything, drop it all down, and start to figure out where I want the light to be the most clear. So for a piece like this, what I really want is these areas of light to be the main focus for the design. So the entire inside of the mouth is going to be a main area of focus. So just like the other piece, we're going to start with a hard edge for the light. We want to just like get these two tones looking really clear, the light value and the kind of shadow value. And I think rim light is going to be pretty important for this design overall, so we can kind of start to add in some of those rim light elements. Figure Drawing says, in regard to getting Lorcana jobs, is there a general way in which Disney hires people? So I was reached out to um, by, I think, one of the main art directors just for Lorcana. They were looking for a very specific look that I had in my portfolio from back when I was in art school. So back when I was a lot younger, they saw a piece that I did, and it showed them that I used texture and color in a really fun way. And they wanted me to kind of emulate that same look for their latest set that was coming out at the time. They wanted to do, in Lorcana they have these like this like rarity hierarchy where the rarest cards are like these enchanted cards. So they wanted me to come in and do a kind of specialized enchanted card, essentially. Oh wait, we did this wrong. So what I always do whenever I have a multiply layer and I want to make these kind of lighting decisions, I want to mask it first and work on the mask. Huh, okay. Didn't copy what I thought it was going to copy. It's unfortunate. But I think that showing the skills in your portfolio is really important. You got to be able to show that you have a clear sense of, a very strong sense for lighting, that you're very competent in your fundamentals, and you can show restraint. Like that's one thing about the Lorcana gig that's so hard, is that you're working in the Disney style and you're working within the Lorcana Disney style. So not all Disney characters look the same. They all have different proportions and different rules and all of that stuff. So you have to not only work within their kind of rule set almost, but you also have to adapt it for all the different IPs that they work on. So for me, what I had to do was I had to work on, I mean, I say I had to, it was an honor to be able to do an official illustration of Donald Duck. That was so cool. So I got to do an official illustration for Donald Duck. That was sick. And that was really hard. Donald Duck is really hard to draw, guys. He's not easy to draw. So that was a really big challenge for me. It was just drawing the thing was not easy. So you have to work in their style and adapt it for the different characters and IPs. and also give it to them on time. The other element is that their schedule's insane, bro. The Lorcana schedule's insane, so you have to be able to do work very quickly and be okay with waiting like a few months. Monetarily, it's not something that any of the Lorcana artists are like doing mostly like full time. Yeah, because they're only giving you a couple cards, and the base pay, I think it's public, right? Is the base pay public? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's public. Let's ask. Okay, no public standardization. Okay, so I actually don't know if I'm allowed to discuss this, but it's not as much as you think. I'll say that. Yeah, definitely not as much as you think, and they're not giving you enough cards to actually like live. You know, it's something you do on the side. So, like for me, it's what I do on the side. Like primarily, I do a lot of teaching, and you know, when I'm on a concept art gig, I'm focused on that. But on the side, I work on Lorcana cards, which is fun. So I did that main one, which I can actually show you because it's out, obviously. Yeah, let me show you guys my card. It looks kind of sick, actually. I wish I could show you the full art, but I'm not allowed to. I'm only allowed to show what they did. So this was my this was my card. Here, yeah, there you go. Which is really fun. And this was not easy to do, man. It might look easy, but it is not easy. Oh my goodness. So this was fun. Yeah, and it was a super honor to work on this project. It was really fun. Uh, but yeah, it was cool, and I put so much effort into the rendering on the pile of food, and they just blurred it out. They just blurred it out, man. Which is so sad. So sad. So in the past, I'll show you why it's surprising. Because in the past, all their cards were like this, which this is not my art. This is Gonzalo Kenny, by the way. So like this is kind of was the look for the enchanted cards, where it was the bottom was transparent, so you could still see all the detail of the drawing. And this set was the first set where they switched the design and blurred instead of did the transparency. So I was like gutted when the art came out because it looks so good in my opinion. But who knows? Maybe they're gonna do something that makes it so yeah, that makes it so you can see the whole art. But the foiling is really cool. I've only seen it in person once. Yeah, the foiling looks like this, so it looks really cool in person. I've seen it a few times. I've only seen one copy in person. I don't even own a copy. It's too expensive. But yeah, the way they hire is, I think it really varies. It really varies. Um, but if you're like a major Disney fan and that's like clear in your work, then you have a higher chance, I think, of getting hired than if you're just someone who kind of wants to work on the IP. I think for me, I honestly got really lucky with what I did. I got really lucky with the piece I worked on. Also, I had some work experience working on like some kids show stuff, so I think like that also helped, showing that I worked with like toy companies and on like TV show pitches and stuff, which was cool. Northern Lemon says, "Do you ever listen to anything while you work?" Yeah, I think so. I'll listen to stuff while I work for sure. It's usually honestly not as much as you think though. I think I really value my focus when I'm working on stuff, like very highly. Like focus is really important to me while I'm working. So sometimes I will not listen to something because I really need to focus and get some stuff done. Um, I think that when you're actually designing, it's not good to listen to stuff. But I think when you're rendering stuff and just doing like busy work, like finishing work, it's easier to maintain focus than when you're working on something more thought requiring, you know? Because it's already hard to do concept art and design. If you add in a layer of distraction to it, it's hard to actually hear yourself think. You'll probably resort to some kind of autopilot, and that'll make it yeah, just next to impossible to improve. Cool. So yeah, we're mapping some light to this now. So I'm just using a multiply layer. You can kind of use anything you want, to be honest, to do a process like this, but I'm just choosing to use a multiply layer for now. I'm just kind of painting it out a little bit, some of the lighting stuff that I want to get for this. What I will say is the folks at Ravensburger are really nice. They care about their artists a lot. They really care, and they really are very encouraging, and they do a good job. So if you have the chance to work with them, I would highly recommend it. Okay, cool. So now that we're on like this phase of the lighting here, what I'm gonna do is close it out again using the kind of soft brush, and I really want to bring the focus like in. So I want to show that lighting coming from the center there, it reduces heavily as it kind of travels away from the light source. Yeah, push the shadows really hard, push the light really hard. Yeah, and then you can kind of adjust and push and pull it as you like. So I don't want it to be super dark. Like I don't want it to be like a super intense thing. I want it to be more mild, kind of like this here, which is nice. Let's see. Ayub says, "How's the card project you did? Project doing? Did you see the lemur I sent? Oh, I haven't seen it yet. No." Northern Lemon says, "Makes sense. I find it helps to talk to myself while I'm designing to process my ideas." Yeah, I see. I see. Yeah, man. It's also like, music is so influencing. Um, if you're not careful, it can really dominate your thinking. So that can be good and bad because I've been on a few projects where the guy I was working with, like the AD or something, like while we were working in session, we listened to like a very specific curated playlist, and that helped maintain focus actually quite a bit. So in many ways, like I actually see the merit of listening to very specific things while you're working because it very much like sets the tone for what you're working on in a good way. So it can be really good, I think. Yeah, so I'm really liking the just extra bit of contrast we have here with the design. What I'm tempted to do is just group this and just flatten it and start painting on top as per usual. So this light value down here, I really like this value. This value is looking real nice, kind of against the the outline here as it goes across. Yeah, I really like it. I think it looks really good. Oh, I forgot. Wait, I have an effects layer somewhere. Where is it? Yeah. I added in some little rough effects, like some kind of dust being blown to either side, like something I want to refine. Yeah. So, one thing that I like to do in my process is I like to get the value range that I know is kind of set for the drawing. So I get all of the values and kind of colors down that I like, that I want to keep. And then after that, sometimes I just only will grab colors from the canvas. So I'll keep it really limited to that value range and I'll just grab colors from the sample colors I already have. So while I'm working on this, I'm actually going to remove the effects layer while I do this little bit of rendering here so we can kind of work it out as it goes. Yeah. And I'm much more privy to a kind of I think like somewhat painterly look in terms of having some really nice texture in there. Yeah, I think this one as it curves over the edge, we can fade it off a little bit. But I like that kind of crease point. I think it looks good. Yeah, the card project I'm doing, I think I showed some of it last stream, right? I'm pretty sure I did. Yeah, I'm working on my own TCG right now. I can show you some of the the test cards. I love showing stuff on YouTube because it's like hard for people to steal the idea because they have to like watch the video. So it's like only the people who kind of like you will see it. Versus posting on Instagram, people can just kind of jack your idea a lot easier. But yeah, these are some test cards I'm working on. The style is like very illustrative and much more, I think, like fantastical and kind of cute than what I would normally do. I guess like for client work or for my portfolio. So it's been really fun experimenting. Here you can see I'm just using a bunch of texture in a fun way. The game is a really fun trading card game where you're you're kind of like in this enchanted forest, and these kind of these beasts help you figure stuff out, and they help you. Anyway, I won't give away too much of the game system and stuff, but hopefully I can start playtesting it soon. Hopefully, we'll see how far I get. So one thing that's tricky sometimes is working with really dark kind of black drop shadows, because the graphic look that you get is so nice, but sometimes it can be really hard to know like where to stop and where to kind of keep pushing it. So for instance, with like the tongue here, I have to decide how dark I want to go behind the tongue. Like, is that too much? Looks pretty good actually, but maybe it is too much. So we push it a little bit. Maybe we bring it back some. These kind of gums here. So it's not as pronounced, that dark shape, you know, it can kind of ease back in. But I do think these nice crispy areas of darkness make the piece look so good. So we want to be very strategic with where we use those, where we bring in that heavy, dark emphasis for shadows. Got to be very strategic. Hmm. One thing that nice dark line helps with is really asserting the gesture and the flow of the silhouette. Because if you get rid of the lines and you're just working painting wise, you have to be really careful with how you're structuring your silhouette. If you look at artists like Alphonse Mucha or Lion Decker, they use a lot of outline even when it's like not quote realistic. But you would consider Leyendecker quite a realistic painter, all things considered. But he really employed those heavy, heavy outlines around his piece to get that sense of really strong appeal, which we all know and love from J.C. Leyendecker. Yeah, past few streams I've been like just rendering a lot more like live. I was really averse to it in the beginning because I thought it was not as interesting as just like sketching and designing like really quickly. But you guys have been giving me feedback that you actually like the more render based streams, so I've been doing a bit more of those recently. Also, if you guys have any design questions, don't be afraid to ask. I'm here to answer all of your design questions and even like world building questions or artist questions even. Super happy to talk with you guys about that stuff. Yeah. Man, recently stylistically, I feel myself being pulled in a very like storybook direction. Like I feel like my illustrations are these days are skewing a little bit in the towards like the direction of like storybook style. Not in a bad way, in a way that I actually really like. And in a way that's been really fun, to be honest. Like it's felt really cool just to kind of be working more in that zone. It's been interesting, I think, for me. Yeah, so we have our value range of light and shadow where we know kind of what's in shadow and what's kind of getting hit by light. And now we're just working the material back and forth, getting the forms we want, the shapes we want, the values we want in a good way. Tulip says, excited for the dragon class. Oh man, me too. Yeah, you signed up, Tulip. That's awesome. Heck yeah. Yeah, there's still like hella spots, dude. Yeah, this one I added a lot more spots because the last one sold out pretty quickly. I think there was some people who weren't able to go in. So this one I opened it up a bit more, and it's a bit more of like an open forum kind of look, which I like. You should make a picture book. Man, I honestly am considering it. I'm considering definitely considering that for sure. Something that I'm really curious about and thinking a lot about. And we'll see. I'm really open to it, you know? Especially because now I'm going to be in New York for the next 4 years. I didn't know where I was going to be these 4 years, so it was actually like a real. There was a minute where I felt like I really couldn't like plan. I didn't know where I was going to end up. Um, my love of my life, beautiful, wonderful, gorgeous lady, got into medical school, and we didn't know which medical school she was going to get into or where in the country or what was going to happen. So it was very up in the air, and that's actually a lot of why I did a lot of the online stuff is because I was kind of preparing myself for the reality that like, hey, you could end up in the middle of nowhere where there's like no art jobs and nothing going on, and you gotta do it all online. And I was like, all right, man, let's start streaming and teaching and see if we like it and all that stuff. And it's a big reason why I started doing it because I didn't know if where I was going to end up, but she ended up getting into one of the best medical schools in New York. So we're sticking around for another 4 years, which is really exciting. And so I'm like considering, I'm like, gosh, now I can like feel comfortable talking to New York publishers and stuff. Let's see. Ryan says, I've probably asked you about this before. Hey man, listen, you can ask it as many times as you like, whatever it is. It's always been a problem for me, but how do you suggest going from a sketch that feels alive to a finished project without spoiling the original feeling? Mm, that's a really good question. So the first thing I'll say is that it's pretty much saying like doing the how to thing where you're like progressive about it, where you're thinking about like the development part. Working this way doesn't really work very well. You end up always with a kind of stiffer outcome usually. And that's because along the way, you usually get lost in your process. So, for instance, like what I'm doing here is working with a really clear process where I know exactly what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, and it's allowing me to be very decisive with how I'm finishing it. But for you, for instance, you might not have a strong process for finishing that feels good. You might have a a process that's kind of sort of loose where you're like, well, I like Procreate, so I draw in Procreate. I like doing line art, so I draw it in line art. And then I like coloring the line art, but then it doesn't look like how I want it to look like, and everything kind of falls apart. Doesn't look as dynamic, doesn't look as alive. It looks really stiff and stuck. The colors don't work, nothing works. So a sketch as a final product, right, is very different to a, like, let's say like a painted illustration, right? But we can also just use illustration in its isolation too. So these two outcomes are so different. If you look at really great examples of strong illustration, it's oftentimes using many different dimensions of design. It's using light, color, texture. It's using style really dynamically, and all of that stuff, whereas your sketch is just kind of using line and rhythm and shape, and usually it's the impression of energy or the impression of something. It doesn't really have any clear definable elements that you can describe easily. It's oftentimes somewhat intangible. So then what happens when you try to finish something that's intangible? Well, you have to have a really clear idea of what you want your outcome to be. So we talked about, painted illustration or just kind of a very developed illustration. Let's even use the example of what we're working on before. So our kind of Dragon Knight guy over here. Yeah, this guy. So if we look at this guy, for instance, as like some kind of outcome versus the original rough sketch, I think I made one major blunder where the blunder I made when I was working on this was that I had a really nice line going from this leg that ran like all the way up the shoulder and the body, and that kind of added a lot of movement and curvature. So what I ended up doing in the line art is I brought that leg in for some reason. I don't even know why I did it. And it really choked the energy. So you can see where it should be there versus where it is now, and how it kind of, honestly, in my opinion, kind of ruined the vibe of the whole piece. So I made a mistake by not following the flow of the sketch because I wasn't paying attention to the flow of the sketch. I was now in a completely new world of thinking, where before I was thinking about rhythm, movement, gesture, idea, proportion, flow, and kind of placing things out like pauldrons and armor and this and that. The second I went to line art, I only started thinking about, I can copy this layer so we can do it. Hello? Here. Yeah. So I only was thinking about detail now, where I'm thinking about, okay, what are the overlapping shapes? I have the placement for these wings, and I have these kind of very rough shapes where it's the impression of a shape. But now I'm defining those things in a clear way, where I'm showing overlap, the creases in the skin. I'm showing the scales on the arm, making sure that the rhythm and movement of the scales seems appropriate. I'm defining out the anatomy of the face. Like before, it's just very big blocky shapes, and then bam, we're defining everything, with the hands as well. Again, big kind of shape. I sort of have placement here, but then I have to be really clear about what the placement is. So you definitely need to think about that next step. Some changes end up being good. So the original axe, I had this weird like cutout shape, which was kind of awkward. And then in the final, I got rid of the cutout shape, and I was really focused on the silhouette of the shape. I curved the end in more, and I got this really cool, strange point thing on the blade, which just added a lot of really cool energy, which I liked a ton. And you have to think about all these other tertiary details now. And I think I kind of just biffed it with the leg here because I didn't, I just kind of started changing things, and I should have zoomed out and kind of went, how's the gesture? How's it feeling? You know, I didn't check in. I wanted to go straight into color. But what I knew I wanted was I wanted a finish that was, it showed the material, but it wasn't photorealistic. So a photorealistic painting, I just have no taste for it. I don't like it. I don't think that photorealism looks good. I think it looks pretty bad overall, in my opinion. I think that this kind of stylized look where things are still clear is a lot more fun. So jumping to the piece we're working on now, where I've got this funky guy, you know, going from the original loose sketch, which is kind of wild and crazy. You know, I have the rough sketch here, but I knew in my mind what I wanted the finish to be. So I wanted the finish to be line-based. I wanted it to have a strong sense of magic, which meant that light was going to play an essential role to how the piece felt. So when I was blocking things in, like I was doing base layers and stuff on top of the line art, when I was blocking things in, I was always knowing that this was the local value, like the first pass of what the final was going to be. This is in and of itself not the finished thing. But I think that if you don't know what your process is, it's really easy to start thinking like, oh, I just have to render this, like thinking this is your final thing. But no. We've laid out the local value. Now we add in another level to it, which is light. You know, we block out our light shapes, what we want to kind of be the image, and then we start refining, right? So you can even see here how we're just slowly refining this stuff. So now we have the basis for the finish, where we have the value range, we have all this stuff. Now we can start working on the image. So from the original sketch, I was very careful with my lines to make sure I maintained this level of energy. The big open jaw, spread out legs, the arms going back and being kind of wild. And now we have something that, you know, is maintaining that same level of energy, sometimes pushing it even more than what it was originally. So that's, I think, like a quick kind of cliff notes on that stuff. You really got to check. You got to make sure you're not losing yourself, losing your process while you're working on this stuff. It's really easy to lose your process if you don't know what your final outcome is, which is why the fundamentals are so important, because you're not saying, or you're not thinking about it from the perspective of, oh, I really want my lighting fundamentals to be better. I really want my form fundamentals or my perspective fundamentals to be better, because then my drawings will be good. That's not what you're thinking about. You want to be able to achieve an outcome that you can actually envision. If you don't have strong fundamentals, you can't even envision an outcome. So that's actually why I'm doing the Dragon Design course, or the Dragon Design Bootcamp, because a lot of people don't know what they don't know. And if you want to be able to draw a dragon, you really need to understand material. And material is just like rendering with light. But then how do you render with light? Well, I'll teach you how. But yeah, so I think that going from a rough sketch to a final outcome that maintains energy, you need to understand that the energy of a sketch is inherent to a sketch. It's part of the quality of what a sketch is. That will change and evolve. Because an outcome, the basis of energy in a final outcome is just different. You don't have the same kind of looseness. You need to kind of adapt what you know energy to be, and like where you can find energy in a final, which is why light is so important here, because light is adding a ton of energy and intensity to this piece, which is good. I hope that helps, Ryan. You should take my class, dude. Yeah. And you've taken my class before, Ryan, so you get 50% off, actually. Oh, yeah. If you've taken one of my classes before, you get a big discount on this. For those of you former students who are watching, you all got emails, but I don't know if you got them or saw them. Also some continuity stuff. So like for instance, right here, I can tell the form is pinching. So it's kind of ballooning here and pinching here, where it's like feels constricted. So what I want to actually do is push this back, push this whole line back, push this out a bit more. That is a stronger sense of rhythm and flow. Yeah, looking good. Abe says, what makes a good designer, or what do you consider good design? Does it have certain elements that you can understand that average people can't? If yes, how can they still be wowed by the same things? Oh, I have to reread that question. Okay, Abe asks, what makes a good designer? Or what do you consider good design? Does it have certain elements that you can understand that average people can't? If yes, then how can they still be wowed by the same things? How can they? I don't know who they is. A good designer or the audience? Northern says, before I guessed, he kind of looked like he was going to fall backwards. I see what you're saying, though. Before he looked like he was going to fall backwards. Oh, I see, with the other piece. Yeah, it's possible. I mean, you know, it's possible. Ryan says, thank you as always for the nuggets of wisdom. Dude, always. I got you. Kirby says, is it just me or is the volume kind of low? Oh gosh, I'm sorry if it is. Oh, let me change that actually. Man, every time I do it, it's the same thing. I'm okay. I'm kind of worried about changing the audio while I'm talking. Let me see. I'll turn it up a little bit. How about that? We'll turn it up a little bit, couple decibels. All right. All right. Yeah, I think this is good. This is good. You don't want to go too loud or anything. Also, sometimes I'm just not talking into the mic, so there's that problem too. A little bit high. There we go. Okay, that should work. That should be better. Dude, this guy rules. I love him so much. So, yeah, one thing I'm wondering is if I want the other hand to be coming forward instead. I think I do. I think I want the other hand to be coming forward. So, we're going to try to repaint this really quick. Snoozy J, what up, Jay? Says hello. Happy to join the stream. Love the dragon. Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate it. All right, let's grab our inker that we were using, which I believe is. Oh, good God. What brush was it? Believe it was my oval inker. Yeah. This one I'm proud of. I made this brush myself. Yeah, I've been way more into making brushes these days. Artist and non-artist. Oh, okay. Yeah, I have to answer Abe's question. Vexus says, I have a question regarding learning character design philosophies. For example, the difference between something like Yoshimaru and stuff like Q Fang's work, Yo Yoshinaro and Q Fang's work. Interesting question. Let's see. Let's pull up some differences here. Pull up some examples here. This is Yo Yoshinari, sorry. And who else do you say? Q Fang, right? Like this kind of stuff, eh? Or like this, I guess. But people, they have very diverse work. Like most artists, you know, like they have quite diverse work, or more diverse than you think. Like this is really cool. Like this a lot. How do you go about understanding the foundational inspiration of a style you want to achieve? Does note taking help? I mean, note taking helps with all this stuff, right? Note taking is super helpful in general. So something like this, for instance, zoom in here. I wonder, they might be working on top of 3D assets here. But actually, not necessarily, to be honest. This could be just... Let me track here. Yeah. So like it's good to know or good to see when something's like a duplicated asset. I think this interior shape and this shape here is a duplicated asset. Let me double check though. Let me really look. Yeah, I think so. I think they're yeah, I think, but I actually don't know. So really cool stuff though. Look at these cool like landing shoes and the push proportions, and this is looking so interesting. I like the rhythm and the movement. It's so cool. This is the more like actual concept art stuff that you see for like video games and whatnot. This is for skin design for Overwatch. Um, Here's more illustration based work. This is all the same artist, so like very diverse actually in terms of range. So there's more like rendered illustration work. This is just kind of a cool stylized thing. This is more designed for Overwatch, like a skin design, very particular look. And then we also have the other artist you mentioned, Yo Yoshimari, where it's a lot more kind of like JRPG inspired, closer to the anime look vibe. So your question was learning character design philosophies and like the difference between these two styles. How do you go about understanding the foundational inspiration of a style you want to achieve? So I think that every character design is achieving the same outcome in different ways. So what a character design is trying to do is they're trying to communicate to you the idea of a character, and they're using visuals as their mode of communication. So they could have written and described all of this stuff, but it would have been hard for you to 100% get the vision from the written example. So a visual example is super helpful because you can see so much more. They're not just saying like, oh, and they've got a cool sword with designs and a scabbard with a knot pattern and red armor that is looks like, you know, Evangelion or something, you know. A written example wouldn't really work. So for any character design at all, you need a visual representation of what a character is. So when looking between these two, for instance, they're both communicating a character to you, but they're doing it in like slightly different ways. So for this design, there's pretty much there's no intense light depictions here. Like light isn't really present here. It's all neutral pretty much. The only thing that's there is a little bit of texture, mostly done through lines. So they have texture on the pants, telling you about the pants material. You know, it's a textile material. And on the jacket too, the jacket has some kind of worn little bits on it where you can see the texture of the jacket. And then on the metal here, they're using two tones to kind of tell you about the cylindrical shapes. So, for instance, like a very subtle value difference here and here. And then there's some texture that is shown with like the paint. So they're doing two values for the paint in the metal where the paint is chipped off and all that stuff. But really, there's not a lot of light information. It's just form through like line and that's pretty much it. Versus this other piece that same artist, but now there's like a whole other dimension of like light in this one, which is much more dynamic and has a lot more form information using painting and light and all of that stuff. So they've taken it a step further. But again, it's the same idea where you understand that a character's on the page, but they're using different tools to communicate it. So in this one, they're using a lot of really intense dynamic shapes, which is just an element of beauty. But the actual visual information is like he's holding a spear, he's in a pose that shows he's a competent warrior. There's a dragon behind, which has been cut to ribbons. So this character has obviously been doing this cutting, and maybe it's happened all in one moment. So that's like a really fun visual storytelling here with this illustration. Versus over here, it's like there's costume information, and the light information is very restricted. You know, there's not really any like bright white, any glinting highlights or anything. So all these materials are like quite matte materials. It's not like a super shiny, glossy thing, but they are kind of polished and interesting and all that good stuff. But the value range is really restricted and specific. The color palette is really restricted and specific. The shape language, I think, is probably the biggest distinction and probably the biggest difference that you would see between these two artists' work. Where we have very dynamic kind of flowing shapes, a loose line style. We're using just like really bright and intense rim light, big bold light shapes on this character, versus much more conservative vibes over here. But wait, there was more actually. I think we wanna get more from Yo-Yo Shimari, I think. So we can compare more effectively. Because then this artist does the same kind of thing in this splash image. We're using like intense rim light, very dynamic, intense perspectives. I think one is very influenced by like retro anime and like that kind of Japanese JRPG style of illustration. I think there's another contemporary illustrator like Bryce Coe is really inspired by these same artists as well. Yeah, it's got a very retro vibe. Here's another one for these big splashy illustrations. But we're not talking about illustration. We're talking about character design. When it comes to character design, honestly, I don't think there's a big, huge difference between how these people approach character design. I mean, like, the only thing is clear with the Q Fang's work is that their stylization is less like anime inspired, I think. So like the proportions, the look, their outcomes have a bit more maybe flexibility, let's say, than, but I mean, this piece is very anime inspired, but still a little bit different. Yeah, so how do you understand the inspiration behind these two artists? I mean, honestly, like if you just keep going and trying to make good art, you'll understand a lot more through that than I think what I can explain to you. You said, does note-taking help? I think that the flaw with note-taking for that example would be that you would be taking notes on the things that you notice, which might be less than another artist might notice. Like you might be noticing less because you're aware of less. So I think like what you want to do when you're really trying to improve an art is increase your design vocabulary, artistic vocabulary, to the point where you're able to notice everything about a design almost kind of like all at once. So you can make notes of what is like the main feature of this design. Like, is the main feature kind of shape here? Is the main feature the light here? Is the main feature the gesture or the movement? Is it the character's expression? What is it? Is it a combination of all three? You want to be able to tell what is making something work. So your powers of analysis definitely will want to improve to make use of like note taking on that level. Doing studies also helps too, because you can kind of see like, oh, I never would have thought to choose this value for this thing, or I never would have thought to choose this color for this thing, or that's interesting. On my color picker, this looks like a gray, but on the page it looks like a yellow. Interesting, like so doing studies will help increase your exposure to some of these ideas. But yeah, I think like the best thing you can do to improve at art without like anything else is just to draw so much, like just drawing so much, because every single artist that that you love has like paid that toll of drawing so much. There's not a single artist out there who's really good who didn't draw like just tens of thousands of drawings. So I think that if you want to improve and get good, that's the first thing you want to prioritize is like, how many drawings am I actually making? How much work am I making? Am I improving? If not, why aren't I improving? Then you start to make some serious gains. I hope some of that made sense. The question was hard to answer because I'm still not maybe 100% sure what you mean, but I hope I answered more of the question than maybe you even asked. Like, I hope I answered a bit more there. Yeah, feel free to like expand on the question too if you're curious. If you want to follow up or something. Makes a lot of sense, thanks. Yeah, of course. Yeah, with character design, you're always just communicating a character, and there's so many tools to communicate a character. It's just about picking the ones you like and the ones that work for the idea you're trying to communicate. T1 Jump says the concept artist Yintian Jijang Yiping once showed a box of his drawings. The box weighed 55 pounds, filled with complete drawings. Dude, it's no joke. Like, you just need to do it. It's that weird thing of like, no one is surprised that like sports stars, for instance, like people who are really good athletes, like no one is surprised that they're really good, because part of the story of athletes is how hard they work. Like that's one of the stories you hear is like, this is what they did when they were in high school. This is what they did when they were a young adult. They had coaches, they had this, they trained every day, they optimized their rest, they really pushed themselves. And the training element is so important, and you really just can't operate at the highest level if you don't train crazy hard. So athletes, like, no one's surprised. No one's like, oh, huh, weird that this guy's really good at this. It's like, oh yeah, of course they're really good at this. We've seen their journey. We know how hard they worked. Their hard work is like on TV all the time, versus artists where you don't see all their hard work. Like, you really don't. And there are famous examples like Michelangelo. There's an account of Michelangelo and one of his students in his studio where Michelangelo was instructing the student to burn all of his drawings. His drawings when he was learning. And the other artists asked, they're like, why do you want me to burn all of this? Like, all of this developmental work, stuff that was not like, in the fullness of his career. Michelangelo says, he goes, they can never know how hard I worked for this. They can never know. Like the mystique was almost a currency. Like, you know, the belief that it's effortless is what gives it value. It's really interesting. But they all worked hard, man. There's not a single incredible artist out there who didn't work incredibly hard. Yeah, the ones that get really insanely good are the ones that never stop learning. Like the classics, you know, like James Gurney. That guy's just a lifelong student, man. All those guys, those OGs, never stop learning. So funny. What's his name? Who did Gregory Manches, the illustrator, who just has done phenomenal work. I'll show you some of their work. They're a painter who did this amazing art book called Above the Timberline. Let's see. Let's show some of his paintings here because they're really extraordinary. Here's a great one. Yeah, look at this painting from Gregory Manches. It's so good. So this is like a really seasoned illustrator, you know, been in the industry for just forever, you know. There's just so much care being put into this painting. You know, you can see the materials are so clear, the gesture's so clear. It's all just so beautiful. I love how he paints. It's so very classic. But he worked on this art book, and he was talking about his process for the art book. And this is like later in his career. Like he's already an established illustrator, already very well-known, award-winning illustrator. And he goes to work on this art book called Above the Timberline. And when he's beginning it, he makes a note and he goes, well, I have to start like from the middle and kind of work my way out. You know, like I have to start from the middle and just kind of do random pages in random order. And it's because I will improve so much while I'm working on this book that my art style will look different by the time it's over. So I can't do it chronologically. Otherwise, the difference in the beginning and the end will be so severe. It'll be such a big difference. And I always love that story because it reminds us that, you know, even really seasoned illustrators are on a constant path to improvement. And yeah, it's a great thing to remember to get out of your own head. Like, you know, it's not like you get really good in your 20s and then you just stay that way. It's like you want to be a lifelong learner. Hope that made sense. Yeah, and like volume, just so many drawings. Also, drawing's fun. Making a bunch of drawings, that's like a good thing, you know? If you put too much pressure on yourself to be like really good, like too early, like I don't know, man. That's just weird. Like I think you should be putting pressure on yourself to gain the skills to make drawings that you like. So for instance, like if you want to make work that's more visually exciting, you know, you may really want to train your fundamentals of perspective. It's going to give you a lot more dynamism in your work, be able to place characters in space more effectively. Like even this guy's in perspective, you know? So that stuff is really important. Versus like, I have to get good at rendering because I think I have to get good at rendering. It's like, no, man, that's not the jam. You should learn how to render so that you can more effectively communicate the materials of your piece if the materials are important. Like for instance, if you're doing like one of those pilots, you know, that we just saw, for instance, in that Gregory Manches piece, like those leather jackets are so good. You really want to be able to show that material. Painting for 16 hours per day or something crazy. Yeah, yeah. Dude, especially those old school guys, they just painted all day. They didn't really do like school like we do now. They just like went and like trained at a school for a thing. So when you think about the old masters, dude, they've got so many hours on you. Cause like for us, we're like forced to do high school and stuff. You have to do it. Like, you can't not do it and do something else. Like, you have to do high school, you know? Like, you have to do like civics and stuff. You have to, you know? And they really make a big deal about like doing all the stuff like pretty thoroughly, you know? Rather than learning good information, but then maybe putting a larger focus on your interest or your particular area. So just know that you will never, ever have the same edge as those old school artists, because those old school artists were allowed to just go train when they were very young. Like you were never allowed to do that. You were like put in a room until you were 18. And even then, you know, probably forced through undergrad too. Ryan says, gorgeous stuff. Very true. Jay says, wow, didn't know this artist. This painting is so captivating. Oh, Gregory Manches is like secret OG, dude. Ryan says, hope everyone's having a pleasant evening. Aw. Hell yeah. You go, Ryan. T1 Jump says, yeah. And even really great artists have to study and retry things. There's lots of studies done by Lion Decker still floating around. Oh, yeah. Man, his process was so strong, but his process included studies. T1 says, John Singer Sargent wrote to his sister. He repainted a portrait like 15 times before he got it right. There you go. The old masters were freaks of nature. Imagine if you had a video of them painting. Yeah, I mean, apparently, speaking of Sargent, apparently Sargent like was a real force of nature. He would be like wildly almost attacking the canvas while he painted. He worked almost completely alla prima, which is like all in one go, basically. Like you're putting paint directly on the canvas. You're not working in layers. And he would do it all mostly alla prima. He wouldn't even really do an undersketch. He would just start painting for some of these live portraits, and he would apparently go like just wildly painting for like a long time, and then he would just leave and go play piano for like just like bang out like a crazy piano piece like really well, and then run back over to the easel and keep painting. So, you know, pretty intense process for John Singer Sargent, supposedly. Vexus says, really puts the phrase, the master has failed more times than the novice has tried. Oh, yeah, man. Absolutely. Like, the difference is insane, you know? I think also a lot of artists get stuck in the trap of thinking like, oh, I want to improve my fundamentals so I can do like a big illustration. Like I want to do like a big splashy illustration. And they will go years without even trying to do a big splashy illustration. They just won't do the big splashy illustration. And they just sit and they wait until they're good enough. But like turns out like you'll actually never be good enough by your own standards. So you just won't do it ever. And the problem with not doing it is that you never learn what you actually can't do. You instead stay stuck in like a permanent intermediate limbo. And that's one of my big passions with teaching, is like forcing people and getting people to do that thing that's really hard that they've never done. Like a lot of people are afraid of anatomy. So I always make sure in my classes to forcefully expose people to learning anatomy. Because you want to do it in bite-sized chunks. You don't want to do it all at once because that would be insane. But people think they have to. So people just go years without learning any anatomy because they think they have to do it all at once, and they end up never doing it at all. So I always make sure it's a part of my curriculum whenever I teach that you learn how to learn anatomy. This piece is looking really fun, actually. I'm having a lot of fun with this. Sorry if you guys hear any crazy engine noises. I'm close to an intersection here in the city, and it's gets very loud sometimes. But I'm surprised no sirens. There hasn't really been any sirens. Knock on wood. All right. So it's coming on the 2-hour mark, so we're going to close out the session pretty soon. I think you guys asked some great questions, and I think we covered a lot of great information on how to develop your idea. to the next step or the next level by really thinking a lot about what your outcome is. That's like a hugely powerful thing. So keep that in mind when you guys go to work on your own characters, is what is the outcome that you're aiming for? What are the elements of art that are under your employ and that will like really help push the piece? So for this one, we really wanted strong dynamic shapes. We wanted to use the creature's anatomy really well by pushing it in a very dynamic way. We wanted to use light and lighting effects to help create drama and have some of the fun effects kind of come in, like the magical effects. And we even caught ourselves before we went too far on some energy that was kind of like escaping the piece that we wanted to change a little bit. So we'll go for a little bit longer and then I'll probably sign out. Yeah, while we're here, I'll quickly switch back over because before we close out. Yeah, the link is down in the description if you guys are curious. You can check out the Dragon Design Bootcamp I'm doing. It's starting in a couple days on the 11th of July. So definitely check it out. See if it's for you. Here, I'll show you guys. Yeah, here we go. The link is down in the description. I'll also post the link here in the chat as well, so you guys can go check it out. Yeah, definitely go check it out if you guys like. It's super cool, super fun. 9 days of really intense fundamentals training. You're going to be drawing so many dragons. I think you'll probably draw maybe close to 100 dragons by the time the 9 days is over. So we just talked about volume and intensity. This is a very intense thing. So if you guys are looking for some intense learning, power up your fundamentals, solve problems that have been plaguing you for so long, you know, really, really push to that next level, you guys can check this out in the description below. There are still seats available. We'll see how long they last. There's a mentorship slot I didn't talk about. I'll talk about that briefly. So for the bootcamp, everyone will have a chance for their art to be reviewed twice. So on the Wednesday, on the 16th, there's going to be a review session where I look at all of your work that you've done so far, and we'll have a big Q&A session. And also on the Friday, the Saturday and the Friday, there's going to be a lot of feedback and like live feedback. So if you guys have questions in the moment, all of that stuff, I'll help you guys with all of these principles. So you guys will all have feedback and have a chance to ask me questions. But I added an additional mentorship spot because people always end up requesting mentorship. So this will include 5 one-on-one sessions that'll each be 1 hour long, scheduled over 5 weeks, kind of like of your choosing, like, but really it's like the 5 weeks after the course to go over all this stuff, keep deep diving into things that you specifically need help with and want to achieve, whether it's like a project or going over some of these fundamentals, some more extended feedback and all of that stuff. The mentorship has a lot of testimonials. You know, people have had a lot of success. I think I have about 6 mentees right now, active mentees. I should get them to write some testimonials or something. That would be good. But they've shown a lot of consistent improvement and big jumps in understanding and skill. So I think the one that I want to draw attention to in terms of these testimonials I'll put at the bottom from some past classes, I think there was one in particular. Yeah, this one in particular, this quote honestly made me very emotional when this was on one of my earlier courses. It was more about character design, which we'll go over a lot of those fundamentals in this class too. But the quote's really intense. It says, like, Gabriel's mentorship has saved me years of self-study with tailored one-on-one sessions and goal-based feedback. But that thing of like years, like the saving you years, like I've had that feedback from a few students where they're like, oh, I would have been stuck on this for years if it wasn't for this. So that's like my passion with teaching is I want to save you the years of confusion, and I really want to bring you up to date on what you want to know and help you achieve those goals. So yeah, check it out. There's like two tiers. Um, and yeah, and if you really want to take the class, but there are some barriers, like write to me. Definitely write to me because I want to make sure that people have opportunities. So anyway, that's one thing I want to mention there. Okay, back over to our art. Yeah, we'll work on this for a little bit more, and then we'll sign off. This guy's fun. I really like the energy of this guy. He's really I'm really enjoying it. I think he's so cool. Let's see. Oh, we got some more. There's some great artists who don't study. They just bash their heads against pieces until they get it. The study is just them using reference. Yeah, honestly, yeah. The goal is that you want to acquire two things. You want to acquire the ability to execute, and you want to acquire understanding. And together, you can execute on your understanding. So if you understand light, then it's much easier for you to execute on that understanding. So there's two forms of understanding, which is the kind of theoretical side, and there's the practical side. And most artists have a combination of both, and sometimes you're like blind to the theory, but you have the practical element, in your power. And in other areas, you know the theory, but you don't have the skills to actually execute. And most people are kind of stuck in those dimensions. But a lot of artists who say things like, "Oh, I just draw and I just get into the flow and it just ends up looking good." That's an artist that has a lot of practical understanding that they don't know how to describe. But personally, out of the artists that I've met, the best artists are the ones who have both the practical and the theoretical information. If you have the theory and the practical, you will be unstoppable. And that's my goal as an artist, to always have both, to acquire both. I think I've experienced the biggest rate of growth in the past 5 years for myself from that principle of achieving both theory and practical understanding. Honestly, especially in the past like year, I think I there's a lot of stuff that I caught up on that I had been sort of like holding back on really getting right for a while. So I've been just really feeling really stoked about my work these days. CJ, what up, CJ? You joined just in time, man. I'm gonna sign off in a few minutes. T1 says, I remember hearing about concepts when I first started, but they took me years for them to make sense to me. That's usually what happens, you know? You hear about things and they sink in, but hearing about them, man, is like really good. It's really, really good. My students will tell you that my biggest pet peeve for like modern teaching is like shape design, how people talk about shape design. I think it's like really inefficient how people talk about shape design, and people would improve a lot faster if the rhetoric around shape design was a little bit different. This guy's looking fun, man. Nice. Add in our values. Nice. Thanks, CJ. Appreciate that. Yeah, we're just doing a fun speed paint. Another great benefit of really knowing what you're trying to achieve with your outcome is that when you need to make changes like this, you can make them without a whole lot of fuss. Like, I think that if we didn't have as clear of an idea of what we wanted for the look of this, I think the edit we just made with this hand would have taken a lot, it would have been a lot harder. But because we have a really clear idea of how we're using color, value, and shape, we were able to make the adaptation without any resistance, really. We just kind of blocked it in the new spot, pushed it, dropped in the values, and it's looking good. It's nice. CJ says, I actually just bought Monster Hunter World, and their monsters giving me monsters has really great lizard designs. Oh yeah, dude, Monster Hunter, that whole IP, such good inspiration for creature design. It reminded me a lot of your dragons. Let's go. Abe says, I wish everyone here good luck with their art journey. Hope you will be able to push through and keep going. How wholesome, dude. Heck yeah. CJ says, especially since you incorporate a lot of lizard motifs. It's true. I do. Favorite game of all time? Damn. You know, I haven't had the chance to play it yet. I haven't carved out the time to play Monster Hunter. I think I would like it though. A lot of my friends love it. They play it so much. Yeah, there are lots of games that I want to give more time to. It's hard. Hard to know. It's hard to know when your free time is actually free time, you know? Because like sometimes like you think you have free time, but then you're like, wait, I have to do this thing that I forgot about, and then all of a sudden it's like that actually wasn't free time, you know? So I have like sometimes like panic with games and like leisure activities where I don't actually know if it's free time or not. It gets me pretty freaked out sometimes. All right, let's see what we can do here with these cool effects. Yeah. I think we have to rethink some of these effects, to be honest. Let's go ahead and yeah, the shapes were pretty intense before. I mean, yeah, let's keep it this way for now, I guess. So we can apply this. Yeah, I think we have to think about this design again. I think what we want to do is instead of having the balls connected, I think we want to do a cool effect where we have these energy kind of balls or these kind of points of great power. And then I think I like the idea of them like almost like going like across the body and like on the outside, like going behind or something. Like they're like venting back. You know, like and then these ones too. Also having this kind of pushed back feel, like zooming back into space. I feel like that's a cooler motif. Yeah, that's even looking more interesting already. So sometimes in the finishing process, things can, change and evolve, as time continues and presses on, things can kind of move around. We always want to flip canvas, check out our comp, see if we like something, see if we don't like something. I think we can maybe angle this arm up a little bit more if we wanted to, even. Maybe just a little bit more up. Yeah, that feels good. That's so cool. Ah, man, I'm really liking this now. He's so funny. Nice. Yeah, so we'll probably actually paint in some of the effects orbs soon. But I love this so far. It looks so cool. One thing we can do as well is just to kind of simulate what it could look like is we could just up the contrast a bunch, lower the brightness, up the contrast. Yeah, it's looking so cool. One thing that's always fun, I think, is adding in some fun kind of effects stuff. So like, we can grab some like splatter brushes and stuff. I should have some splatter brushes here somewhere. I think I should. Let's see. Man, I used to have a better brush library, I feel. All right, not bad. One thing that's always good is adding in some little tiny details. Adding in little tiny textural details like this. Oh my gosh. I mean, this is one of the things where, in the boot camp I'm teaching, I'm going to teach you guys how to make things like look really finished because people have a lot of hard time. They have a hard time with that principle. Dude, a lot of it is adding like really tertiary details, these little details that just make all the difference in the world, as well as atmosphere. Like a lot of people really they discount the power of just like subtle glow. Just doing something like this, where you have like a very subtle glow, is huge. It's almost you almost can't even really notice it, but it's that kind of thing that just makes all the difference in the world. And then of course we would actually do real textures for this stuff if we wanted to, but for now this is good enough, I think. This is fun. That's so cool. So what's great about doing something like this, especially live so you guys can see, is that, it was looking good before, but it wasn't what we wanted. Like it actually wasn't what we wanted. it was very much stuck in a particular look. So let's compare the two versions that we had. Yeah, so our before. So we had this guy before, which is very neutral. This is extraordinarily neutral, and you might see this kind of value range like in a storybook or like in a kind of children's illustration or something, you know, where it's kind of very neutral lighting and you wouldn't actually have any intense drama. But we wanted to really push the drama and add more energy using the fundamental of light. So what we did was we really amped it up by increasing the value range so that we had a much higher degree of light and dark. And it wasn't just about silhouette and shape, like it was here. You know, it was also mostly about light and energy and power. And we added in some different light sources that were adding more emotion and movement to this forward movement. It was getting a little too, yeah, we can even do this again. There you go. It was getting a little too like stiff with just the neutral tone here. And so with our original sketch, I feel like we got a lot of that energy, maintained and retained a lot of that energy. The next thing we got to solve is what to do with the wings, because I think the wings look so good with this gesture. We just have to make the wings work in the final one. So we'll add in that probably. That's the next thing we do. I might make that adjustment and then we talk about it in the next stream or something. Who knows? But yeah, for now we'll leave it here. I think we got a pretty cool outcome. And for the other one we were working on, this guy, we didn't work too much on it, I don't think, but I do like the direction that we're in now, where we're kind of reevaluating some stuff, we're pushing some stuff. Yeah, I think the opalescence is really working for the blade. I think I might want to push that opalescence into the armor, if I'm being honest. I think the armor is not working for me. But if I added in some of that cool metallic opalescence, oh boy, then I think it's going to be looking real sick. So yeah, this one is going in a good direction, still pushing it, still getting a good outcome. I think I am going to fix the leg here, I think the leg's going to get fixed because it's kind of driving me crazy, not going to lie. All right, cool. Let's hop back. Let me look at you guys for a sec. Let me look at you. Thank you so much for tuning in. I sincerely appreciate it. As always, you know, I've been Gabriel. I've been your art guy, friend, I suppose. Who knows? If you're watching back the VOD, thank you for making it to the end. Yeah, thank you so much for checking out the Dragon Design Bootcamp. I'm putting a lot of work into it, so I hope that it is attended well by people who will really benefit from it. So yeah, thank you for hearing me talk about that and all that good stuff. And I appreciate all the great questions. You guys asked really good questions today. So yeah, thanks for accompanying me on this journey, looking at this guy. Let me double check that I got through all the chat questions. I always double check. CJ says definitely getting into it. Those effects are cool. That's a cool idea. When a car is in a wind tunnel, those streams of air. Yeah, exactly. Adds so much drama, tension. Yeah, exactly. The opalescence is fire. Heck yeah. Thanks, CJ. Appreciate it. Andre, just found your channel. Do you do portfolio reviews? Yeah, I mean, I do mentorship. You can reach out for mentorship. If you want, I can review your portfolio. I would recommend taking my boot camp because there's kind of sort of review built in, honestly. You can look in the chat, or not in the chat, in the description. Really love the textures. Yippee. Thanks for the stream. Dude, my pleasure, man. Of course, dude. I have so much fun streaming, and thank you for asking such good questions. I really appreciate it. Sometimes it's hard to know what to proactively talk about for the stream, so the questions really help. So thank you so much. Yeah, don't forget to leave a like, guys, and comment what you like about the channel, what you like about the streams. It helps a ton. You know, you guys found my channel, and I really hope that that's like a good thing, you know. And if it is a good thing, then I want more people to find the channel. So when you guys like and comment, it helps more people like you find the channel. So I'm gonna stop doing the long goodbye here, and I'm gonna actually end the stream. So thank you guys for joining in, and I'll see you all next time. Much love.